Diablo 4's beta is coming this weekend, the open beta. We did have a closed beta last weekend, but early access to Diablo 4 has run from March 17th to 19th for players who had pre-ordered the game. So if you're one of those who have pre-ordered, you could have got involved last week. Unfortunately, there were some issues technically with the game, but apparently they have paved the way for a much smoother launch. Some users reported that once they were able to get into a game, which might have taken hours in some cases, crashes and an inability to connect with friends have dogged the experience. Now, as we said, the next beta is opening next weekend, and ahead of the game's release, we should expect more improvements. Now, we've got our resident Diablo 4 expert here, Wessel. Wessel, how on earth are you? First of all, thank you for joining me.
Thanks for having me. Well, I'm very well, thank you, after playing the beta.
Yes, you were playing the beta last weekend, one of the lucky souls to get to do so. So you played it last weekend. What were your general thoughts and impressions?
Honestly, it's a refinement of all the systems that made the previous Diablo games great. For example, Diablo 2 is a darker tone, so that darker tone is in Diablo 4, but Diablo 3 had this more impactful combat that you can just feel the combat like a barbarian hitting something with an axe, and that carries through as well. So it's almost as if Blizzard took all those years of experience and the previous titles and just used the base parts and threw it into a massive world.
Nice. Yeah, that sounds well. I mean, they've had a lot of time to perfect this, a lot of games in which to work it out. So, what are the sort of major differences between Diablo 4 and the previous iterations? What are the big USPs? What are the things they've moved on and stepped on forward with?
Well, the first thing is this is really an open world environment. It's not like previous Diablo titles where it's just following the main quest, some side quests. This is massive zones. The first zone, Fractured Peaks, is by far, I would say, about 8 to 10 times larger than any other zone in a previous Diablo title. It improved on so many aspects, and it isn't the last game that came out was Diablo Immortal. It's a mobile game with microtransactions, buying power. It's honestly, compared to that, they learned about that. They learned not to do that again, and they learned not to include something like an auction house at the start of Diablo 3, like they did there. So they just basically fixed all their mistakes.
Well, with the auction house in Diablo 3, am I right in saying that was something that they brought in later, or was like?
That was just after launch, right? But it was a real money auction house, which really you could spend a few quid and buy one of the best items in the game. It was truly just defeating the purpose of the whole game.
Yeah,
so they
of course
removed it, right?
That's good. Of course, well, anything where you can pay to win, or even just having these kind of auction houses is something that is very controversial in a lot of games, and we're sort of seeing it slowly be moved away. You talk about it being open zones and open world. So he's sort of saying it's an entirely open map, or is it kind of more like base to base kind of thing? How does that actually play?
So there's a lot of paths you can take. It's you can basically go anywhere in the zone we played at your own pace. You can complete side quests, or you can just explore and find maybe like an altar of Lilith that increases the power of all your characters across your account. So they're rewarding exploration and going off the beaten path, basically.
Right. And what about things like the actual mechanics and the gameplay and builds and things like that? What did you notice that was either improved, or has everything stayed the same? What did you notice about that?
Well, the skill trees specifically and the builds you can do, it feels more open-ended as well. The skill tree, you select one skill, like a main skill, and then you can branch out in it and select things to improve it. Then you also get aspects. When you complete dungeons, you gain a legendary aspect, and that you can put on any piece of gear in your for your characters. So it's basically just it's opening up the gameplay a lot more for a lot of different builds. Previously, like in Diablo 2, you had the builds were literally called the skill Frostbolt build or Corpse Explosion build, because it focused on one skill that you just spam the whole time for most of them.
Yeah, so this is more like it gives you the option for maybe hybrid builds or doing something completely unique and diverse for you, which I think is very exciting. We're seeing that more and more in RPGs. You know, I played a load of Elden Ring, and you could do hundreds of different types of builds and mix and match things, so it's really exciting. With this game, though, we have seen, as we talked about in the news story, there was quite a few technical issues in the beta. What did you notice about that kind of thing? Did you have problems with queues? Did you notice any crashes or bugs? How was your experience with that?
So I played on Xbox and it was relatively smooth. The first evening, however, I did experience the servers being down for a bit with an error 34202. That's like the new error 37
Right.
from the. So if it goes down, it goes down. The queue times, I didn't really experience any queue times or crashes at all. I
Wow.
was in within 1 minute, but that was the Saturday morning that I really started playing.
Ah, that's pretty good. I mean, obviously you got lucky, as you say, any crashes, I guess you kind of expect in a beta and certain expects for things not to be perfect. But hopefully the beta this weekend, they will have sorted a lot of those things out. And so with what you played so far, are there anything that you sort of thought was missing, anything you weren't so keen on, or anything you think could be added to enhance the experience that you'd like to see feature?
You know what? One thing I did notice is I don't know if it was tuned that way for the beta, but there, I mean, at the end of 10 hours, my character was decked in legendary items, which is pretty much the top end range of items, type, item quality and type. So I think maybe they tuned it up a bit, but I would like to see the drop rates decreased. So it's more like because you're working towards these items. It's if you kill a boss and get four at one shot, then it pretty much just doesn't feel nice, as nice as it would be to get one night. But I mean, I think it's just a bit of tuning and drop rate tuning that they need to do.
And I guess, you know, with it being a test as well, maybe they're testing some of these big items and whether they work, and also just showing off to players. Look at all the fun stuff you're going to get to have, you know. And so the beta course this weekend, are you going to be jumping in?
Oh yes, definitely, definitely. One big reason for everyone to jump in, that even if they played the previous beta, is Necromancer and Druid, both classes available for the first time. They weren't available in the previous beta. So I'm excited to play the Necromancer, see what that's about. Yeah,
For those of you who want to
definitely.
summon corpses, you now can. Well, thank you, Wessel. That sounds fascinating. I think I might actually get involved and play myself, which is unusual. I've not played a Diablo game before, but this sounds really exciting. But Wessel, thank you so much for joining me, and have fun this weekend.
A pleasure, and see you there.
Thank you, man.
Cheers,
Appreciate
cheers.
it.